All right, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
What is your problem over there?
Huh?
All right. Here we go.
Studio nerves.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Two-Wheeled Rider podcast presented by JT Motorsports. I'm your host, Angela Orsini, and I'm joined by my co-host, Brian Boyer. Brian, we've been putting a lot of work in today. We're under this whole quarantine thing, and we're just trying to knock out all these podcasts.
Yeah, putting in the work, and hopefully, while people are home, they have something good to listen to.
Exactly. And we are joined by my sister, Angela Orsini, today. She has appeared on the channel before. I know she has some, I guess we'll call them fans. I don't think we have any stalkers at this point. But she's agreed to join us today. This wasn't actually planned, that we had talked about having you on the podcast before. So welcome.
Thank you. I literally just came over for Brian to play with the dog. But
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we've got a new puppy in the family, Winona. She's a Weimaraner. Probably by the time this airs, 4 or 5 weeks from now, she'll be like 3 times the size she is right now. But those of you watching on YouTube, we'll do our best to get a clip or a photo of her up. So, listen, guys, we, at the time of recording this, like I said, Brian and I are trying to knock out as many as possible. We're not rushing anything. It's just our time's limited. We both work full-time jobs. We have both been, dealing with this whole COVID-19 thing. We're under quarantine, sort of, but we're media. At least I've deemed us media. I think that's mission essential. Whatever. We just want to get out. We want to talk about motorcycles. We want to have some fun. This is not going to last forever. I don't know how long it's going to last, but eventually we will get back to the point where we're riding and everything will be normal again. I realize some people are dealing with some difficulties, but like Brian said, we want to get some information, some entertainment out there and just have a good time. So hopefully we can, ease your minds just a little bit, even if it's just for a short period of time. So we mentioned JT Motorsports. This is the third podcast. They've been the top sponsor for. We're excited to partner up with them. We'll discuss them in a little bit more detail. And, they're not just helping us out. They're going to help our listeners out too. So, and they're still fully functioning right now. We've touched on this a little bit. You can still go into the shop. We're keeping with the whole social distancing thing. But at the same time, they've come up with some pretty unique things. Like you can buy a bike from them and you don't even have to be close to anyone. They'll come drop it off at your house, which is kind of like Amazon. And I got to be honest, dude, if Amazon starts doing dirt bike deliveries, okay, so first off, I would still get my dirt bikes from JT Motorsports. But if we can start having that where it's like single click, add to cart, delivered within 48 hours, I'll be broke in no time.
Yeah, JT Motorsports, get that on there. Get that 2-day prime on your website.
Oh, man, that would be awesome. So anyway, like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about them. Our other 2 interviews we did earlier today, and please keep in mind, these things are airing weeks apart. They were Skype interviews. Hopefully you've already had a chance to listen to those. If you hadn't, we had an excellent interview with Johnny Hopper. Johnny and Brian and I just sat here and talked about Supercross and motocross and how we hate the fact that we're missing race season right now, but hopefully it comes back. We had Amanda Knapp on, which gave us, is also kind of Supercross related because she was featured in the whole Makeup to Mud thing and Monster Energy Supercross. Brian and I have said, we learn stuff every episode we do. We learned a lot from her today. She's an excellent rider. I mean, she kicks my ass all the time. But, she gave us a lot of insight in what her platform is, what she's looking to do. That was a great interview, so go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But now we're joined by my sister. But while those were Skype interviews, and Amanda did have a bottle of Maker's Mark, which she was not drinking from, your dad, Chris Boyer, is still our whiskey sponsor for the day. He's getting max exposure here because we're doing 3 episodes today. We have some Maker's Mark. Cheers.
Some Maker's Mark.
Yeah, my sister's got some Maker's Mark. If you're in studio with us, you're always going to get something to drink. So cheers to everyone. What pour are we up to now?
I don't want to put that on the air.
No, and I've got some caffeine here to make sure that we can continue on as we should. So Listen, we're gonna go over some of our contributors, and we have different levels, and we'll probably have a quick ad about that later on. This is a self-funded thing. Well, it's not self-funded anymore. We have people that are helping fund this. I mean, it does cost money. This is not, if you're watching on YouTube, a little bit different, but if you're listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms, it does cost money to host this thing. It costs money for us to be able to put it out. And that's outside of you and I like driving around places and those sorts of things. And that's outside of the equipment. Like, the equipment's not cheap. We've got, I hope you guys are enjoying it. We've got some top-notch equipment to make this the best audio you can possibly hear. But there's some ongoing costs, and we appreciate everyone that's been contributing to help offset those costs or cover those costs. And, thank you so much. And if you're not, that's cool too. If you're just listening to it, we're thankful. So I think we're up to like 9 countries right now.
Yeah, I think that's just as exciting, just the support of the people that are sharing it every time that we see people that are listening it in new places. That really just, really makes us feel good that we're sharing some information that people seem to enjoy.
No, for sure. And, we talked to Johnny earlier today, and, hopefully this doesn't offend anyone, what I'm about to say, but, it was like, no homo. Like, I really enjoy listening to your all's voices. It's nice. And, and to be fair, like, we're going to try to cover, like, all different aspects of motorcycles, motorcycle racing, those sorts of things. And Amanda and her family have listened to it. Like, that's our goal. We want to... Listen, we're going to have people in studio, you and I at points in time, like there might be some language we have to edit out, but just so you know, this is a family-friendly thing, but when we have a bunch of adults in the room, sometimes we act like children and we just can't control it. But, we just want to share all the different aspects of motorcycling, so we appreciate all the support. Speaking of support, at the contributor level, and if you don't know what the different levels are, head over to Patreon. You can check it out there. You can also check it out on twowheeledrider.com. There's a podcast tab you can click on to find out more. And like I said, we'll run an ad at some point during this. So at the contributor level, we have Luke Harding. He's 10 years old. He's doing chores to pay the $2 a month. He's contributing. He's our first one on here.
He's actually remembering his chores, so it must be important to him. I think he really enjoys hearing his name. He listens to it on his little Alexa thing. So it's kind of funny when I walk by his room and I hear it playing. So it's cool.
It's amazing to me how many places I walk in, I hear my voice or I see my face on a TV. It's just weird. So, also at the contributor level, we have Dylan coming to us on Patreon. We have Alexander Marsh coming to us on Patreon. We have Amanda Knapp from She Shall Ride at the production crew level, which is a little bit higher level. We also have SRT AMA East Hair Scrambles presented by Beta. I know I've gone over this on the previous 2 podcasts. We want to have a live podcast. And when I say live, we'll record it at the track, but we're going to do one at the track. It's just fun hanging out with Kenny Held and it's
Dave Nash.
Nash.
Great personalities.
And we'll have Andrew back on. Like that's fun to do anyway. The fact that we'll get to record it on location and share that with everyone. We were hoping to do it next month. We haven't ruled that out yet. It could still happen, but if it doesn't happen, I promise it will happen, assuming it's not something like totally outside of our control. It will happen sometime this year. And you need to tune in for that one. You'll learn, you're going to learn a lot about racing and the behind the scenes of it. But I think most importantly, you're just going to be entertained.
Definitely.
We need to do that one earlier in the night. Otherwise, stuff could go totally off the rails. Also, at the production crew level, we have Morgan Graves coming to us on Patreon. Thank you so much. Executive producer level, we have Jeff Hokinson. And, and we'll talk about this, but at the executive producer level, that kind of unlocks some additional things where I was about ready to announce the dates for the two-wheeled rider riding events, which if you're at that level, you get early entry to. Obviously, with everything going on with COVID-19, it's tough to say. I still have tons of dates that will potentially work, but I'm not going to announce them until, some of these restrictions and stay-at-home orders and those sorts of things are lifted. So, and then we have a one-time contributor of Christopher Brown. I think he was Ontario, Canada, but he emailed me. We sent him out a sticker pack, thank you letter, those sorts of things. He's really enjoying the podcast. So thank you to all of you guys that are helping support this podcast. We are going to take a quick break, and then we are going to come back, and we are going to talk to my sister about all sorts of things, but for the most part, we're going to talk about fitness, staying in shape, staying safe while riding, motorcycles, which is what we all love to do. So we'll be back in just a few moments. When Brian and I need something for our bikes, we head to JT Motorsports in Frederick, Maryland. JT's recently moved into a brand new, huge facility, conveniently located just minutes off of I-270 and I-70. Their massive showroom floor holds brand new models from Polaris, Can-Am, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Husqvarna, KTM, and now specialized e-bikes. If you haven't tried an e-bike, you have to. Those things are so much fun to ride. And for the wee little riders, check out their line of Stasic Kids bikes, which are the perfect way to get youngsters involved in riding. Their showroom floor also features a huge selection of riding gear, accessories, and other essentials to keep your machines running good and looking good. They carry some of the top brands in riding gear, including a Rye and Climb. Need parts for your bike? They keep a ton of parts in stock and ship daily. Heck, you even have the option to call, email, or text your parts orders in. If you don't like working on your own bike, that's okay, because they have a full service department that will work on any make or model. Just mention the Two Wheeled Rider podcast when you call, email, text, or stop in the shop, and you'll immediately get a 10% discount on parts and accessories. Visit jtmotorsports.net or call 301-846-4318. And if you didn't write that down, don't worry. You can find it in the podcast show notes or YouTube video description along with their address. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, we are back. Brian got some necessary playtime in with, how old is that puppy now?
10 weeks.
Yeah, 10-week-old Winona, who is a Weimaraner. She's over on the couch.
She's also a motorcycle enthusiast. She just doesn't know it yet.
Gotcha. So please welcome to the show NASM certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, Bommarito Performance Systems Level 2 performance coach, general manager of FAST, former Division I women's college basketball star, former professional football player, and a street rider with over 18 years of experience, my sister, Angela Orsini.
That sounded good.
Yeah, I know. Everybody likes their intro when they come on the show because I just play it all up. So
Good
I want to know
journalism.
how I get one of those. I just get like
Brian just gets it's Brian Boyer. All right, so listen, I mean, we did a video probably a little over a year ago now, back when we were, I don't want to say we were running a youth racing program, but we basically like combined, you and I and Andrew and Dave kind of combined our resources to put a youth program together where we could get sponsorship and those sorts of things. And you guys up at FAST, which stands for Frisby's Athletic.
No, Frisbee's
I'm sorry, Frisby's Frisby's Agility, Speed, Strength Training.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is run by James Frisby. He's the founder of it. You've been the general manager of it for a while. And it's a place that I work out. I had to put some chapstick on, my lips are chapped. It's a place I've been working out for the last couple of years. You guys are like a full sports performance training center. Unfortunately, right now with the COVID stuff going on, you're
I have some spare time.
Yeah, exactly. But, you guys, and we may touch on this later, you're looking to do some online training, those sorts of things. But we took all the kids up there. And one of the things I remember, and Brian was talking about earlier before we started recording is, I mean, we worked their butts off. And then you and I took them out for pizza, which might not be the best idea, but they fall asleep on the way home.
Yeah, they fell asleep, and Luke's still talking about it. It was just fun for them, and I think that's important to make fitness fun.
So, and that's what we want to talk about right now. Like, we're going to get into, a lot of you listening are probably Brian's of my age, maybe a little younger, maybe a lot older, maybe somewhere in between. But we want to touch on the youth aspect of it first. And why is it important to get young athletes? Now, I recognize we're a motorcycle podcast, but this doesn't have to just stay to motorcycle riding. It can be anything, just athletes in general. Why is it important to get young athletes involved in performance training early on?
So a lot of what happens with our youth is they get involved in youth sports. So whether it's dirt bike racing or basketball or baseball, what ends up happening is a lot of them end up getting overtrained in their sport and then underdeveloped in like as they grow and develop. So growing up and going into puberty, because basically when you are doing the same sport over and over and over again, you're doing the same types of repetitions. And what it does is it develops imbalances and deficiencies. And so where the performance training comes in is where we can kind of level all that out, recognize it first, kind of see where the imbalance is, and then start to correct it. So that's where we can work both sides of the body or the front and the back side of the body. And then also teaching them intention. So no matter the sport they're playing, if coach needs them to get in a lower stance, or Brian, you need to get Luke in a better position on the bike and he just can't do it, it's not his fault. He doesn't understand it. Yep. So those are things that we can correct in a controlled setting.
And that's one of the things I've noticed. I know some folks that have gone up there, and I'm not going to call out anyone in particular, but if you're expecting to go in and be like totally challenged and just leave there dead at the end of day one, that's probably not going to happen. You guys need to figure out where your deficiencies are. And to be fair, like, I'm somebody that's been working out for 25 plus years, but things happen in your life. I spent a lot of time in a car commuting to and from work. I didn't realize that my hip flexors don't have the flexibility they had before. And I come in and they're like, what happened to you? And we need to fix this. Yeah. So I'm not necessarily going in there and like coming out dripping a sweat the first day. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people realize. Like, you don't have to come home dead tired, right, or wake up the next morning sore, or feel like you've been pushed to the limit each time, like a lot of trainers will do, because if you feel that way, you go, oh, I worked hard and I need to come back. You may not be tired the next day, and I think that's okay. And that's something I'd like for you to talk to a little bit about, because you talked about inefficiencies and imbalances, and that is something we noticed. And I think it was Austin. Like, there were a couple. Austin, awesome rider. Yep. When we took him in there last year, you were quick to point out that, he's a little bit stronger on this side, he's a little bit better on this side, and he's weaker on this side. How important is that to be able to I guess diagnose is a good word. Diagnose those things and then get them caught back up before you start building again.
Right. So yeah, again, that's something in a controlled setting, you can see it and then you can diagnose those things. So yeah, I mean, a lot of what we do is also for longevity. So like, Austin might be like the best racer right now, but 2 years from now, he might start developing a shoulder deficiency, where something's bothering him because it's weaker than the other side. So one side of his body is pushing harder than the other, and this one's like really trying to keep up. Well, eventually something's going to break down. Kinetic chain, everything's connected. And if one side's working harder than the other, maybe not right now, maybe a year from now, something's going to start bothering him. And then we go, okay, we'll fix that. Well, then the next thing starts bothering because we still haven't really fixed the initial problem.
It's almost like a chain effect. And I think
exactly,
especially in off-road, the injuries unfortunately are going to come. So I think if you can try to limit some problems early on with what you identify, that really helps. Because your body, longevity.
Yeah, your body works as a guarding system. So if something hurts, you're going to guard it. And then you continue to do that over a long period of time, and no one really notices until something really goes wrong. And then that's where, you're a little too late. Now you're out for months at a time or maybe a season.
Yeah, and it's starting those habits so early for them. I think that's the cool thing of getting my son in there is I can't take him to, I don't want to say a normal gym, but a gym. I can't bring him into a gym. And even if I did, I can't go send a 10-year-old over to the weights and say, hey, just pump some iron and you'll be all right.
Yeah.
No, and what you're talking about right there is there's a difference between fixing the problem and diagnosing the problem and actually understanding where it's coming from. For instance, we may have a fouled plug. The easiest thing to do is put a new plug in. But did that fix the problem? Well, no, not if it fouls again. Like, we have to keep going back and doing that. And I think that's where you guys kind of come in and go, okay, well, if this is a problem that continues to happen, we need to find the underlying issue, figure that out, and then build from there.
Right.
Okay. So it is a lot of hard work. You can't just go into the gym and I'll edit this out, half-ass it. you do that, you're going to get those types of results back. But how do you guys work the balance between the hard work and making sure the kids still enjoy it? Now, we've kind of already touched on this. Kids had a great time, but how do you guys make that work?
Yeah, so with them, obviously, I pulled all the good stuff out. I threw a few hard things in there, but I wanted them to enjoy it because I wanted them to come back. And then it takes a while for them to understand because, our kids get quick results, but then for those long-term results, they know they have to continue to do it. And it's just like riding motorcycles, Luke, you're going to make him do like the same sequence of, some type of technical area in his trail. You're going to be like, you got to keep doing it.
Repetition.
And it's the same there. You have to get repetitions. And so eventually they get bored with it. So that's where they have to understand how it transfers, and the importance of doing it right. Just like on the dirt bike, you can't just go out and putter around and then go to the race and expect to do well. You have to push yourself. And so it's the same with their training. We're not in there, like you said, trying to kill them or, it's more about them learning the intention of it, doing it right, understanding that, quality over quantity, and then being able to transfer it to that bike or their sport. Because we train kids of all sports. There might be a golf player in there next to a running back for football. And they both have different goals, but the intention still stays the same.
And it's lifelong skills that
Yes.
they'll carry with them. If you do it right versus trying to come in later and think that you know what you're doing and you end up getting hurt or,
No, and you're definitely spot on with the technique, and it all comes down to what is it you're trying to accomplish. Like I've been in there early morning when you guys have the adult classes, and there are some things. While Brian can destroy me on a dirt bike, there are some things in the gym that I'm still pretty good at because I've been doing it for a long time. Early on, I had some great coaches. I've done some lifting competitions. I've done some bodybuilding competitions. I understand how my body works at this point.
Right.
I also understand proper lifting technique on what we'll call the core lifts. I mean, you do some crazy ass shit that I'm still trying to figure out. But when it comes to those core lifts, I know those tips and tricks, and I'll walk over and go, hey, let's just adjust your hand position a little bit. Let's get your feet set here. And it makes a big difference. But it's also not only will it allow you to lift more weight, build more muscle, it's also safer.
Yes.
If you're able to do it that way.
Yes.
So, all right. So we're talking about kids, and while Brian and I will sit here and debate how fast our kids actually are, because we know how fast Andrew's kids are and Dave's kid is right now. Our kids are still pretty fast. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they are. But, when it comes to top level riders, and I'm talking the people that already have the best technique, the best equipment, do they need to come do like sports specific or performance training? And if so, what benefit will they see?
So I think for them, a lot of it, we've talked about energy systems in the past. And for those top level performers, you have basically two energy systems. You have your aerobic capacity, which is with oxygen, your anaerobic capacity, which is without oxygen. Well, with them, their heart rate is so high, but it sustains there. So it basically, they have to get oxygen in. So they learn how to do that basically by practicing all the time. So that heart rate stays really high. So their aerobic capacity is at a very high level. And they're able to sustain that. For them, off-season training is important because that's where if they can't get on the bike in the off-season, they live in an area like we live in, they do need to get on some type of cardio. It doesn't necessarily have to be cycling. Everybody thinks they need to cycle. It can be anything. The biggest thing is working those energy systems. So that's where you get out of the aerobic zone and into the anaerobic in, the gym. And so now you're going work to rest ratio is like 6-to-1. So I'm going to peak my heart rate, then I'm going to bring it back down, then I'm going to hit it again and then bring it back down and see how long I can sustain that. So can I sustain it for a half an hour or an hour or whatever their goal is. It would have to be how long is their race? How long do they need to sustain that for? Then when off season's over and then get back on the bike, then it's more repetitions on the bike. Now, as far as muscle mass, that's going to be important too, just like with the kids, developing those deficiencies because you're just riding. Things are going to start to get overworked more on one side than the other. certain muscles that are stronger are going to take over, and then the smaller muscles kind of fall to the wayside, because whatever's stronger, like I said, the body's a guarding system. So wherever that deficiency is, the body's going to guard it. You get halfway through the season and things are starting to hurt them. Hips are getting tight, knees are hurting. The core is getting fatigued. So those are areas where they need to develop early on and just kind of sustain. They don't need to be, bodybuilders or CrossFit guys or anything like that. But
no one should be a CrossFit guy.
Thank you. But just really body maintenance and just having, those guys have to stay lean too. But just holding some type of muscle mass that works for them and gets them the best performance on the bike.
Yeah, those are great points, because to me, I think that's the most overlooked aspect of racing, is everyone focuses on getting their kid out there and getting the right technique, getting them riding as much as possible. And that's important. Mm-hmm. But if you overlook the fitness aspect and working on that, it's going to hurt them in the long run, and they're not going to be as safe riders. They're not going to be as healthy as long. So it's definitely something balanced. And look at all the pro moto guys. You got to look at it. There's a reason they all have coaches and they're all doing this stuff.
Personal trainers now. Yeah.
Every single one of them has it, and there's a reason they're.
Yeah. Well, I think that just further drives home the discipline of what it takes to be one of the top level guys. Mm-hmm. If you have the discipline to go out to the track, and you have the discipline to go into the gym, and you have the discipline to eat right, like that, it's not going to hurt anything. It's only going to help. So, all great points.
Yep. So we talked about some of the top level riders that already have a lot of the skill set. Now, looking at kind of the amateurs and focusing on, they're not as worried about doing this for a career. I think at the end of the day, a lot of the amateurs just want to go out and have fun, be healthy, mm-hmm. and be safer on the bike or motorcycle. What do you suggest there?
So definitely developing their skill level more, just mainly for safety. If this is something they enjoy, let's be safe with it. Make sure we understand the technique that's involved with it. And then the other thing, I think, like with the pro riders and the kids, I would say probably more skill, probably like, 60-40 skill to, working out. For amateurs, probably like 50-50. So 50% skill, 50% making sure you're in the weight room, taking care of yourself and watching your nutrition. Because then also we crash a lot too. And as we get older,
Mario knows about that.
As we get older,
that is true.
It takes longer to recover. The better in shape we are, the healthier we are, the quicker our recovery time will be.
All right. So here's something that's not talked, like people go to the gym for all sorts of reasons. Mm-hmm. A lot of people just go to the gym to quote unquote be healthy. I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
Different definitions for each person, right? Some people's just showing up.
No, you're right. It is. So talk to us about the importance of having some sort of goal. And I don't mean necessarily like your goal is to, win some sort of regional title, but maybe your goal is to ride an iron butt, or your goal is to take a 2-week motorcycle trip. I'm keeping this all specific mm-hmm. to motorcycles because that's what we're talking about. How important is that? Why is it important to define that? And then how do you build like some sort of fitness regimen around it? That's a big question.
Right. Yeah. So let's take an iron butt, for instance. So that's something I've been wanting to do.
Which you can't do right now.
I can't do it right now.
You can't. We had this conversation last year.
We had a nice argument about this.
And then I proved you wrong and myself right.
So then I went out and bought a sport touring bike.
And that helped. Sometimes you need the right equipment.
So something like that takes a lot of endurance, muscular endurance, but also cardio endurance. And then, one thing Mario pointed out is you can't drink coffee the whole way down there because it's a 24-hour ride and you're just going to have to stop and pee all the time.
Yep.
So one thing is to prep the body for that. One, obviously you're going to have to go out and ride before you take off for that long of a trip. The other thing is getting your cardio endurance up. So again, like we talked about, more aerobic based. So just getting on a bike, whether it's a cycle or just any type of cardio equipment, and just kind of banging it out for like an hour. Not doing anything high intensity, just keeping your heart rate at a healthy rate and going 40, 45 minutes to an hour, a few days a week. The other thing is just muscular endurance is just mainly targeting each muscle group. You don't have to go in and kill yourself. Just make sure muscles are contracting, keeping your core nice and strong, which Mario hates when I say core. Really, it's trunk and spine, but for listeners, it's core. But your core is really not just the front of your body; it's all the way around. So we talk about trunk and spine. So that lower back is a big part of it too, especially
it's
when
just
you're
to
riding.
me, it's become like some sort of fad term.
Yes.
That everybody, you got to train your core. Well, what does that mean? My abs, and I'm like, no.
So is it drinking lots of beer?
I mean, listen, you can have a really strong core, just have it covered in fat.
Right,
I mean,
you can
that's
have a spare
fine.
tire around it,
Yeah.
literally. Yeah. The biggest thing is making sure it stays engaged as you're riding, because a lot of what typically happens is you start to sink down and you get a lot of trunk flexion, and then over a
It
period
just
of time,
wears you
fatigue.
out.
Yeah,
It starts to put more pressure on your wrist, more pressure on your hands. You start to get,
your
Compounding
head
effect.
starts to
Yeah.
push forward, so now your neck gets sore.
Yeah. Where if you can keep in proper riding position for a long period of time, you don't get as tired as fast.
So that's a big one. Another one is, just through the shoulders, which I'm going to talk about. The posterior chain is super, super important. So whether it's an iron butt or, like Mario said, a more technical ride, from the top of the back to the lower back, the glutes, the hamstrings, all of that is important to be able to keep it engaged. And then when you need it to fire, it's there. The muscles are able to contract.
So, we kind of talked about this a little bit because you and I went back and forth. You wanted to go ride an iron butt.
Mm-hmm.
Did you just have the monster at the time?
Yeah, that's what I had.
It can be done. I'm just telling you. Like,
I
it's
think
not
I was
the
just
opposite.
at a tough point in my life. I just needed something to
something to look forward to. And I told you, I'm like, if you haven't done like big time, granted, your iron butt would probably be easier. Well, not easier, but at least the amount of miles that I'm about to talk about the miles would be easier, because if you're going down the interstate, it is easier than riding more technical roads on West Virginia country back roads.
Right.
But we did go out and ride 575 miles one day. You and I, Rusty started out. I don't know where the hell he ended up that day.
He wanted to go to Tennessee.
We bring up Rusty all the time. Like, we will eventually have him on the podcast. He's a character, but at lunchtime, Rusty decided,
Squirrel.
yeah, exactly. And he went off in some other direction. But we weren't riding, or at least I wasn't really riding above the speed limit or anything, unless I was going around a car, because we were riding all 2-lane roads. And I don't know what body fat percentage we're working at, but at least men compared to women, you're probably in better shape than I am right now, because you drink less than I do. But
I don't need as much.
yeah, we rode 575 miles that day. The fact that you're in the gym all the time working out versus the fact that I'm in the gym, my workouts, to be honest, at this point are between 35, 45 minutes a day, probably 5-6 days a week. But I also understand what my body needs. I've been doing this long enough. Like, I can read everything going on, but you're probably in there more than I am, but I ride more than you do. How many times did I have to pull over and wait for you to catch up? And it's not just, so before you answer that, it's not just physical. There is a mental aspect to it too. So talk about that day a little bit and how crazy that was.
Well, first off, when we started, it's always freezing cold, so I'm back there. But was able to keep up. We kept Rusty in between us. It was on the way back when the temperatures started to get a lot higher. So it was hot. And then we're on West Virginia country roads. So it was like literally I would have to amp myself up before those turns would come up, because you see them coming. Every time you're going up the mountain or down the mountain, here they come. So I'd have to kind of amp myself up. Okay, Orsini, just watch Mario, stay on it, find your line.
And that was fine as long as you could see me, but when you started drifting back further, it's tough
well, and
to
here's
follow.
the other thing.
This is the way I feel following Brian.
It's dropping. Yeah. You're like, don't drop to third. Don't drop to third. Shit, I got to drop to third. And then it's like, he's going to be way ahead of me. Then you come out of it, and then you're like, God, I'm so tired from all those turns. I just want to coast. But it's like, shit, I got to catch up with Mario again. And then here comes the next set of turns. And it literally was physically fatiguing and mentally fatiguing, because you want to push yourself. At the same time, you're tired.
Yeah. You also want to make it there.
Yeah.
Well,
safely,
there's always a safety
balance.
factor involved with it. It's, and like I told you, and I wasn't just talking trash, but it was one of those things where you're like, I want to ride an iron butt. And I was just straight up. I said, you're not ready to ride one right now.
Right.
And that's not any sort of disrespect. It's just, I understand, and I'm no iron butt expert, but I understand what it takes. I mean, that entire 19 days to Alaska and back, I rode 500 miles a day plus every single day, or at least on average.
Yeah.
Like, there was only one day I didn't. And that's what I've trained myself to do. I've had these conversations with Pete Moravec, who we'll have on the podcast at some point. If we go out to the racetrack and do a track day, Pete destroys me. Pete will destroy me out on the street for the first hour, and then as time goes on, and he'll admit this, like he can't keep up with me by the time we probably get to mile like 200. He's not used to that. My body's training in a different way because I've always wanted to be, I don't want to say a long distance rider, but a tourer, which is totally different. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that, the difference between riding training and training off the bike. But we're going to take a quick commercial. We'll let everybody catch their breath, and we'll be back in just a few moments. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to that quick commercial break on how to support the podcast. So we were starting to get into this right before we took a break. When it comes to motorcycles, and this can go across the board, whether we're talking long distance riding, off-road racing, street, I don't want to say street racing, track racing, like asphalt. What's the importance and kind of what's the difference between on the bike training and off the bike training, and what type of split? I think you kind of touched on it earlier, but what type of split are we looking at here, and how does it vary during in-season and off-season?
So across the board. So like I said, I mean, with amateur riders, I would say about a 50-50 split. But again, when you are, in the spring, summer, and fall seasons, you're probably going to be on the bike a little bit more than you're in the gym. So with our more pro level racers, definitely on the bike a lot more. I would probably say anywhere from 60-40 to 80-20 when you're in season. It's going to come down to what your issues are as far as your skill level, how you're competing, and where your weaknesses are. So, at the end of each race, you're going to critique yourself. Where am I struggling at? And that's where it's going to come down to, do I need to spend more time on the track, or do I need to spend more time in the gym? Do I need a little bit more muscle because I'm fatiguing out too much? Is my trunk too weak? So it's going to come, a lot of that's going to come down to it. But I still believe a lot of it, if you're competing and you want to compete at a high level, obviously you're going to need to spend more time on the bike. But depending on, like we talked about before, overtraining versus underdevelopment, if your body is underdeveloped, then you need to spend more time developing the body. So it's going to be different for everybody. And that's where you need, someone like me or another trainer to speak to and kind of see what is the best route for you. And then it's going to change as you develop, then things are going to change what you need.
So if I'm hearing that right, pretty much for the top level athletes, you still need to spend the time in the gym, but that time in the gym may be a little bit less than someone who has deficiencies. So the rest of your, I hate to say gym at this point, the rest of your time in the gym or on the track or wherever it may be spent on specific skill sets versus trying to fix deficiencies. And I think that's where Alden Baker kind of comes in, like he kind of does it all.
Well, it's customized. I think that speaks volumes of what you all are doing at Fast is, I can go into the gym and just say, okay, here's my workout plan. I'm going to, bust my ass. I'm going to do this workout plan. I'm going to get in better shape. But I never have a clue about any of those deficiencies or how to really improve it. And like you said, it's customized. Everybody's a little different. You can't go into the gym and just they give you the same workout that everyone gets. Right. That customization is so important.
Yeah, and that's one of those things we would assess you. You need to get assessed, and then we go, okay, we're going to target this, and then we'll reassess you in 4 to 8 weeks. And we reassess you. We go, okay, this is fixed now, but maybe we develop something else. So then we work on that. And Winona?
We're just being slightly interrupted. The dog decided to jump on the coffee table.
But that's where getting assessed and reassessed, and also assessing yourself. Once you start to understand how your body works, and our bodies change every few years anyway, especially as we get older. Every 5 to 7 years, we change a little bit, which means the way we train has to change just a little bit too. But recognizing that, putting a program together to fix it.
The dog's on the floor.
His mommy.
And now the dog's going to be in my sister's lap.
I still say he was coming after me.
But yeah, to get back at that, yes, specialized, working on what the individual needs, and then based off your goals. So if you're like, Angela, I just want to feel better, I identify some things, we fix those. When Mario first came to me, what was it, knee issues?
It was knee and hip issues. I didn't.
I
have
threw you on the sled for a while. Yeah.
I didn't have flexibility just because I've been sitting in an office job. I've been sitting in the car a lot, sitting on the bike a lot, and that was back before I started doing off-road racing. So I mean, that's helped with that because even though people think I never stand, I actually do stand from time to time on my dirt bike.
Yeah.
So any kind of we've talked a lot about the working out. What are some of the general workout tips you would give? And then also touch on kind of the importance of bringing in nutrition. You can do all this hard work in the gym, listen to everything you have to say, but I know there's, a diet piece in there that'll really help as well.
Sure. Yeah. Look good, feel good, ride good. Right. So as far as general fitness tips, like I touched on earlier, definitely developing the posterior chain. Most of the people I deal with, young, my age and old, have a lot of issues with their glutes are very underdeveloped, and it develops things like their knees start to hurt. I've got one client right now. She has a sciatic nerve that's bothering her. It's literally because her glute medius are too weak. That's literally all it is. And I can't keep her disciplined enough unless she's there with me to fix it. But what it does is it numbs down her left leg. It's literally just developing, the outside part of her glutes. So, it comes down to, again, that posterior chain. So developing everything from the scap down the middle of the back, the lower back, things as simple as like doing Supermans, bird dogs.
Wait, just interrupt for a second. There's going to be people listening to this that have no idea what Supermans are. Can you explain that for just a moment?
Can we insert a picture of Mario doing a Superman on his bike, or are we talking about a different Superman?
I've probably done that before.
Right. Superman would be laying belly down on the floor, literally extending your arms over your shoulders and lifting your arms and legs up to where you are contracting your glutes. Your hips are still on the floor. So that's something that kind of contracts the muscles in the lower body without loading them. So that's something. And we also work with tempos too, because Mario knows this. He hates it, but he doesn't like to stretch. So I used to make him do a lot of isolation movements.
I hate stretching.
So isolation movements will improve range of motion without really having to stretch. So holding a Superman, for instance, for as long as 5 seconds, making the glutes contract for 5 long seconds, also keeps the lower body, the muscles in the lower back contracted, will start to improve that muscle contraction and range of motion. Same with your squats. Squats are a really good one. That one's a hard one to teach. I typically start people out either with an infant squat, which is too hard to describe, but you could also do a wall squat where you face the wall and extend your arms over your head against the wall and you squat and you're about a foot off the wall. So if your knees start to push forward, they're going to run into the wall. So it teaches you to sit back and engage your glutes. And again, I'll make them sit at the bottom and contract the glutes for 3 to 5 seconds, which again is like literally just squeezing your butt cheeks together. A lot of people, when you say contract, they like to think that they know what you're talking about. They really don't. And you're like, literally just squeeze them. So those are some things that they can do. Dude, she is biting the hell out of me.
I just put her on the floor at this point.
And then things like scap push-ups. So a lot of people struggle with a regular push-up, keeping their trunk and spine engaged. So typically when they push up, the shoulders stay high and the hips drop down low, which means that lower back and the trunk is just dropping down. It's not engaged at all. So we'll start them with a scap push-up from the elbows, which literally you get in an elbow plank, and all you're doing is squeezing the shoulder blades together. So you kind of drop the chest towards the floor.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I don't know that she wants 110 volt going through her body there, chewing on the cable there to the light. We try to be as professional as possible, but we got a puppy.
Yep. But those are just, and then a basic plank as well, just strengthening the trunk again. Those are just some basic movements to start with, that I can. One thing I'd like to do, Mari and I have talked about, is release some videos on just some basic stuff for motorcyclists to do, especially this time of the year before spring starts.
Well,
and they get on the bike.
Sounds like there's some simple things that you can do to make an immediate impact on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, even when I was back doing bodybuilding competitions, and I know you've done some in the past too, which does not necessarily translate to being a faster rider, but just general overall fitness, people will be like, "What are you doing? That's so much." It's diet and exercise. It's always been diet and exercise. It will always be diet and exercise. Nothing's ever going to change. But what people have to realize is there is a difference between when I say I'm eating 6 ounces of chicken breast and a small potato and, however many ounces of broccoli, and they go, well, I had a turkey sub today. That's pretty much the same thing. No, it's not. But there is no secret to getting into shape other than you put in the work. And when it comes to, if you want to lower your body fat or whatever, like, it's just diet. And diet is not something you go on. Diet is what you eat. And that's what people need to realize. Like, you're going to have to make some decisions. But like what you just touched on, no, it's fine. You can bring my drink over. We're cool with that. We got a dog running around and everything else. Yeah, take the dog with you. People just have to realize, like, there are simple things you can do to make big changes into how your body's functioning. Mm-hmm. But there's things that you need to do consistently and not just, you can't just show up to the gym for a week and hope that everything's going to change. You can show up to the gym for a few months and see some big changes. What you need to be prepared for is those next few months.
The plateau that
you're going to hit a plateau. Right. Yeah, it's going to don't quit because you're going to lose all those gains. Like, it always made me laugh, like when creatine first came out. And people were like, well, if you stop taking creatine, you lose the gains. Yeah, if you stop working out, you lose the gains too. Like, it really doesn't matter. It's a continuous cycle. You need to continue to do it from now until, I don't want to say eternity, but pretty much, like, it's got to become a habit. It has to become a habit. For me, it's just become part of my daily routine. I wake up at 4:00 in the morning. I head out to the gym. I get my workout in. I'm done. There is no excuse for the rest of the day. Like, if you hit me up and like, hey, let's go drink beers later today, well, I can do it. I'm not going to miss my workout. Is it the best thing to happen? No, I should probably turn down the beers. But having the beers and getting my workout in earlier in the day is a hell of a lot better than missing my workout and going out and drinking beer.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's what I was saying. I mean, any success story you read or book, what do those guys do? They all get up early. They work out. That's what they do. It's just a better lifestyle. You feel better.
To be fair, Brian was working out before this whole COVID-19 thing.
I still blame the COVID-19 or,
And then they shut down the gym.
They shut down my gym. Yeah, I went for 3 days, and then they shut me down. I think,
I'm going live Tuesday and Thursday at 9:00. So gotcha.
Right. And we'll touch on that in a moment. Yeah. So here, lips chapped. Here's my next question. And anybody that knows me knows I carry around cherry chips chapstick. I've done it for the last
4 years.
No, not for years, like decades.
Yeah.
Now at this point. My lips are incapable of producing moisture at this point. Like, if it's not cherry chapstick, it ain't happening.
So cherry chapstick, if you're looking to sponsor the podcast.
Listen, if we got chapstick and some sort of actual, like, bourbon distillery on, I don't care about any money. Just keep me in
lips and cheeks.
Right. So, all right. So we've kind of touched on this, and this question is a little bit tongue in cheek, but there's also a scientific explanation behind it. No offense, dude. I'm in better shape than Brian is. Why can we go ride the same trail and I'm dead at the end of it and he's okay?
How many years have you been dirt bike riding?
Since I was 4, so 30 years.
Yeah.
Off-road.
Yeah. There you go. That's pretty much it.
But I mean, from the standpoint of how our bodies react to things, that's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So basically, we kind of said before we started today how things are more technical for you and less technical for him. So basically, your body's working harder than his is on that same aspect of the trail. So like, yeah, you guys are going the same distance on the same technical roads, but his body isn't having to work as hard because he's so used to it. It's like second nature to him. Whereas for you or even me, it's not. And then there's certain areas where you are better on, but your body is just working harder. And so you're burning more calories, but you're also fatiguing a lot quicker too. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. And vice versa, when you're on the road for a long period of time and he's behind you, he's going to fatigue quicker too.
Yeah, and that's what blew my mind when, Mario
He
invited
he finally figured out I could ride.
Yeah.
It took a year and a half, and he was like, "This guy doesn't totally suck."
The respect levels came.
Yeah, no,
Even.
definitely evened out. I went to the Wild and Wonderful weekend, and he's like, well, we'll see if everyone can kind of keep up. We'll see how the group goes. And I'm just like, we're all riding on the road. There's no keeping up. We just ride. And I was like, there's no getting tired because I'm not running over rocks or going up,
Right.
these crazy hill climbs. And then sure enough, by the end of the day, like I'm shot and like I can ride longer, off road
when it comes
over
to
gnarly
off-road,
stuff.
yeah,
and it was great. I'm just sitting here on a bike. I know how to work a clutch and how to work a brake, and I'm on the smooth road. I'm not going to get tired. But sure enough, it's great points. And I think a lot of it has to do with, having the right, body position, what you talked about earlier.
And too, like I was talking about with the pro level, even though their heart rate, let's say like if you went out with a pro and you got your heart rate to sustain, but your heart rate was just sustaining at like 170. But then, the guy that's the pro, his sustain at 146. It's two different energy systems you're working, and you're gonna tire out.
But what's
quicker.
crazy is like we've seen some of the heart rates come back of like a Caleb Russell or a Maverick Vinales or a Cooper Webb or whomever it may be, and their heart rates are like sky high. Like they're at the max the entire time, yet they're still riding with perfect technique. When they come off the track, obviously they're gasping for air there for a few minutes, but then they recover. But I mean, they're obviously top-notch athletes, but I mean, if I were to go out and do that, I don't think my heart rate can reach the levels that those guys
Right.
do because I'm 10 years older than most of them are or more, and I'm not in near the physical condition they're in. I mean, it's fascinating what they can do.
Well, yeah, and the younger you are, the higher your heart rate can go and sustain. Granted, not the healthiest thing for you all the time.
I just prefer to thin out my blood a little bit so it makes it easier in my heart to push it through.
Yeah, but it's crazy. I used to wear a heart rate monitor when I raced, and after 2 hours, I was, around 180, 185. And, a lot of these pros are showing what they do after 3 hours of racing. And I think one thing is it gives a lot of credibility of the fitness. Everyone just has this thing. I'm sitting on a motorcycle.
Twist the
I'm sitting
throttle
on a dirt bike.
Right.
So it's kind of cool to see that aspect, and then talking more with you of all the different pieces that go into just riding.
And I sent you guys my vitals, and Andrew can go out and ride with a heart rate of 27 or whatever and still win a race. But I sent you guys my vitals one day, and I know James has been out. The guy that founded Fast has been out on a dirt bike a little bit, not quite to the level we've ridden. It's tough. I mean, it's if you think you're just going to sit there, and to be fair, you can just sit there and twist the throttle and ride through a field.
Sure.
But it's totally different when we got 35 trees coming up on you, and you got to pick the right line so you don't smack into the middle of one of them, and you got some guy behind you, and you got a guy in front of you. Like, it's like any other sport. You're pushing the entire time. And I don't know if everyone realizes that, but if you haven't experienced it, it's something you need to check out. So.
It's definitely something people are unaware of, I think, more than anything. And then on the nutrition side, I didn't really touch on that, but if that heart rate is sustaining that high for that long a period of time, you better be damn sure your nutrition is pretty on point, because that's a lot of wear and tear on the heart. And at a young age, yeah, maybe it's not as serious, but as you get older, like I said, we talked about longevity. A lot of what we do with these kids, and then also our college athletes and more elite athletes, is some of those guys come in, they're already fast. I don't need to really develop them. I just need to keep them healthy. And it's the same with those guys. They just need to stay healthy and make sure they're putting the right things in their bodies. And it comes to, Mario and I've talked about this before. If you go to the grocery store, you stick to the outside aisles. Yep. More whole foods than anything. If you can pick it, kill it, or grow it, you can eat it. Everything else, just a little bit here and there. But
Brian,
lots of protein and starch.
Write that down. If you can pick it, grow it,
kill it, or grow
kill it. No, whatever it was. I'll go back and listen to the podcast. That's a great idea. And you're right. I stay away. If it comes in a box, I don't want it.
Right.
Like I want it wrapped up in either I want it out in the open, assuming no one's coughed on it with the whole COVID-19 thing going on, or wrapped up in some sort of saran wrap. Otherwise, or in a carton.
Right.
We'll just say that. Otherwise, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Like there's very few boxed foods in my house.
But it's a great point. I mean, especially you said, younger folks, they can kind of handle that a little bit. But as you get older, I think it gets more important to have that nutrition along with that exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and here's the great secret, not to ruin your all's business, because there are sport-specific things to do. The secret to fitness is there's no secret. Eat good foods in moderation, exercise. That's it.
That's it.
But
It's
people
very
don't
simple.
want to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
People
It's
don't
hard
wanna do
work.
it.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's definitely hard work. Like,
It's a lot of discipline. It is.
that's the big thing. And that's what, and I'll go back to, I think it was my eighth grade year of middle school. And we were signing up for classes for high school. And Ben Fry, who's a doctor now, he's also a guy that wrote me out with the prescription for my knee braces. Thank you, Ben. He's a bone surgeon. I'll just call him that. What is
Right.
that? Whatever.
Yeah. Orthopedic.
Orthopedic surgeon. Super smart guy. Ben was like, Mario, you need to sign up for weightlifting class. I was like, because you've heard people say this. Well, I don't want to get all big and bulky. I play basketball. If you think, and this is especially true to women, you're going to get big and bulky, I got news for you. That takes a hell of a lot of work. It takes a hell of a lot of eating to happen. And that's where I kind of started down the whole road of discipline when it came to not just staying in shape, but also just discipline in general. Like, you've put yourself on this regiment and you're going to do this every day and you're going to hold yourself accountable. And the whole idea behind it is you're better the next day. Mm-hmm. Now, as you get older, there's going to be some times where you go, I got to take off 3 or 4 days because I'm not better than I was
Recovery is
yesterday.
important.
Yeah, I need to recover. But it is something I've enjoyed doing, and I just can't ever envision myself not doing that. You touched on cycling earlier for, motorcyclists that want to get in better shape. I personally love cycling, whether it's stationary or on the bike, only because I absolutely hate the treadmill and what is that, elliptical thing? Like, that's just weird. I can't do that. So,
Well, you look at your joint loads too. Like I said, as we get older, the less joint load we put on our bodies. That's why you see a lot of old people, like geriatrics in the swimming pool.
Yep.
It's the best thing for them. Yeah. The bike and the elliptical doesn't provide that joint load, so you can still get your heart rate up without taking the pounding on your hips and knees and ankles. So cycling, my gosh, there's so much you can do on the bike. I mean, I mix it up, but I'm like, if you don't like the bike or you feel like that's what you have to do, you don't. But yeah, definitely as you're getting older, pay attention to how much load you're putting on your joints, because it is going to create more wear and tear. And again, as we get older, the less we can handle.
Can we just say on the podcast that long distance running is the worst idea ever?
Yeah.
I've never been attracted to a long distance runner.
All right, we'll just
But
say
long distance riding.
Long distance riding's awesome. It's one of the greatest things ever. But running, no. Yeah. All right. Brian, do you have any additional questions?
No, once again, we talked about this earlier. Every time we do the podcast, I'm like, I can't wait to re-listen to this just because I'm learning so much.
Brian and I are just facilitators. We want to learn. We want to learn about what else is available, what else is out there, so we can go experience it. We hope the listeners are in the same category. Like, they want to learn. Obviously, we'll have listeners that listen to certain things and they already know about that. But, hopefully 90% of the time it's something brand new.
You pick up nuggets no matter what. And I mean, we've been in motorcycles or dirt bikes for 30 plus years. And I'm learning something from each podcast and each person we talk to. So just really appreciate all the information.
Well, I will say this. One thing I would like to start doing, probably just through my personal training stuff, is more stuff directed towards motorcyclists, especially going into this time of the year and all the spare time I have. The other issue I struggle with, which probably everyone else does too that rides, is when you are on the road riding long distance and you stop at a convenience store and you're trying to put decent things in your body. What the hell do you eat?
It's difficult, yeah.
Yes.
Monster Energy, 0 calorie.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
No, it is hard though, because it's the same thing. Fast food. There's no really super healthy option for fast food.
And let's be honest,
Convenient.
Even though now I have pretty decent sized saddlebags and stuff, you still can't fit much in there.
Right.
I mean, I know there are guys out there that think I should take fire starter and tents and, all these different things. I stay in hotels, but you are right when it comes to like the whole snacking thing. Like, I think it comes down to like, by the way, why is beef jerky like $10 for like a little small pack of it? Like, that's crazy. But like beef jerky, almonds, nuts, There are things out there you can get. There are protein bars. You just need to read what's on the back of it, because some of them are basically glorified Snickers bars, which I'm not knocking Snickers bars. I love one. And occasionally from time to time, they might be the best thing you can
it's
eat.
knowing the difference. Yeah, maybe I'll just have the Snickers instead of the,
But you're right. I mean, that, maybe we can collaborate and come up with something that we can share with folks to say, hey, because you are going to get to areas where maybe you can't get lunch that day, or you need a snack in between. What's the healthiest option? And not just the healthiest option from the standpoint that I don't want to get fat, but what's the healthiest option to power my body, power my brain, to keep that's always been my thing.
Exactly.
Concentration level.
Yes, exactly.
If you make a mistake on a motorcycle, especially on the road, it can be fatal.
Right.
So having that brain food is you have to. It's not an option.
So that's something I'll be working on. And it's not just that. It's also what you're priming your body for before you take off. But then if you're gone for, like you are, for 2 weeks, then there's a lot of things you need to think about that you're putting in your body. Like you said, you make one mistake.
There's no going back. Yeah. So listen, I love that you guys are looking into, we have 3 main sports, 4 main sports. They all involve a stick or a ball in some sort of fashion. But there are other sports out there that are far greater than those sports. Whether you compete in them from a hobbyist level. And I love that you guys are taking a look at that. So just, for listeners, how can they find more out about what you guys are doing?
Biggest thing is probably get to our Instagram or YouTube account. It's just Fast Training, FASSTRAINING. And you guys have direct access to us. If you DM us, we'll definitely hit you right back if you have any questions or need any help. We are developing more online training, mainly for our youth athletes right now, but I'm actually working on some adult stuff at this moment too. That would be more at home and nutrition help. So I'll probably launch that Monday, actually, that you guys can purchase online.
Sign up for that, and if I can do it, anyone can.
That's probably true. So, first off, thank you for being on the podcast tonight. I know it was the last minute thing, but we had talked about having you on. Is there any possibility we can develop some sort of thing for the general motorcyclist?
Like online training or
something like that.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I think that's kind of what we hit from the standpoint of that's our general audience. We're gonna have pro level riders. We're gonna have top amateur level riders. We're gonna have a little bit of everything. But I think people that are listening to this also just want to, how can I stay? I don't know about you, Brian. I'd like to live forever so I can continue to ride.
Yeah, no, it's about being healthy, or just, it doesn't have to be, like you said earlier, about bodybuilding or that. Like, I would like to do an iron butt as well. And I know I'm not there physically. I would need to do a few things, and I know there's some things that I can learn.
Maybe you guys can come with me on one. I'll babysit you along the way. And
we're going to do it.
Please come, Brian, please.
Listen, I haven't done one in like almost 4 years now.
But you've been talking about it.
Yep. Oh, no, I'm going to go again. Yeah. It's going to happen. I'm doing the Bun Burner Gold. I want the 1,500 in 24 hours. Well, and I know I can do it.
We'll be at the hotel at the 1,000-mile marker.
Brian, I'll be drunk.
Yeah. I'll ride down and then ride back that extra 250, whatever I have to do. But no, I think everyone should have goals set. And that doesn't mean like some sort of aspirational athletic goals. It just means, if we're talking about riding, go out and have fun, but you have to have a level of expectation of what you can actually accomplish and what you want to accomplish. Right. And there is some training that comes in with that, whether that's on the bike training or that's in the gym training. And there are going to be people that, I can't go out and ride, 600 miles in a weekend or whatever, because I have to work or I have family obligations. Mm-hmm. But if you can supplement that with the in the gym training, maybe you can go out and do those longer rides later on. So
right, and it comes down to, we never want to stay the same. We always constantly want to be evolving. So I know for me to evolve as a rider, I just need to get out and ride more. The gym time it's not. Yeah, Maria's been giving me shit for years.
You just gotta come out and do it.
Yeah. But for other people, it might be they do get enough riding in, but their bodies aren't feeling well. So, putting something together to develop a foundation and then build from there is definitely something I can do with fast and get that out there.
So I don't know what my travel schedule looks like in 2020 because I had some ideas and now, thanks China. Is that racist? Am I not allowed to say that?
God, Trump?
Yeah.
Jeez.
It's the China virus because it came from China.
He
Anyway.
ate a bat.
Yeah, don't eat bats, people. Like, seriously. That would have... All right. I don't want to get sidetracked. Point is, I don't know what my 2020 travel plans are right now. I had some ideas. That said, if I can keep them to 5 to 7 days and you can come along to experience... my optimal trip may not be what other people's optimal trip are. Like, mine may be 100 miles more, 150 miles more, that sort of thing. But I'd love for you to come along on them. Mm-hmm. Brian, who's resetting the cameras right now behind the scenes. Listen, you're more than welcome to come along too. It's an experience. And I feel like once you get out on the bike and once you start checking out the awesome parts of the United States, it's an addicting thing that you're always going to want to do. Not to say I don't want to go to other countries. In the last 2.5 years, I've been to like 9 other countries. I want to go ride those places too. But I need to catch you guys up so
There's
I have friends to ride with me
Yes.
in other places.
Well, and it's frustrating because I know the level I was at when I was 20 and I know the level that I'm at right now, and it's frustrating. And like I said, I just need to get out and ride.
The older we get, it seems a little bit harder to find that time to ride. But yeah.
I have a T-shirt that says, "Stop making excuses." What does it say? Don't start whatever. It's basically stop making up excuses to ride, make excuses to ride. Not to ride.
2020.5 is when we reset, right? So that's
there has to be something good here in this year.
Yep.
It's been, I've read tons of memes. I'm a huge meme fan. If you follow me on Instagram, I have tons of memes in my Instagram stories. I don't necessarily believe all of them, but if they're funny, they're funny. And, this year sucks so far. Kobe's gone. Australia's been on fire. We've got a virus infecting the entire country, or not just country, entire world. But at the end of this, hopefully the 3 of us are still able to throw a leg over a motorcycle, go have some fun, and that's...
Yeah, get that stress relief. I know everyone out there is going through a lot with this, so we're looking forward to this to being over and getting more riding in this year.
Eggs, anything else you want? So, background for the listeners. My sister's name is Angela. Brian, I don't know if you know this. I found this out on your trip, something I'll touch on here in a second. My sister's nickname has been Ags, Aggs. My dad gave her that. It was short for Angela versus Ange. Just like you and your dad have the whole George thing, George of the jungle, watch out for that tree. Just like me and my dad have the whole Homer thing from Homer Simpson, don't be an idiot. I call her Ags. I feel like that's died off a little bit, but people are still aware of it if you're in the inner circle. Mm-hmm. You had it on your letter jacket in high school.
Yeah, I did.
Anything else you want to add tonight? By the way, you are a previous sports talk radio show host. Co-host.
In the Zone with Fred and Angela, Sports Radio 1340.
I love me some Fred Persinger.
That's where you got your first radio experience. So
yeah,
you guys owe this podcast to me.
Yes, that's all coming out.
You're dead serious. Like, Fred was on location somewhere, and they're like, hey, we need a fill-in. Mario, will you come in? I was like, yeah, I'll come talk some trash. Like, I don't care. I love talking about sports. That's changed a little bit. Still love talking about sports, just if it's on 2 wheels now.
Right. Yeah. No,
that's some cool background.
Yeah. No, Ags has died off. Being a general manager.
We'll throw up the old school picture of her and I, at WEPM.
Yes.
Recording.
I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess if anything, one thing that I always tell our athletes, it's kind of lame, but they understand it. Your front muscles are your show muscles. Your back muscles are your go muscles. So if you guys want to develop and be a better athlete, whether it's on the bike or off the bike, you need to develop the backside of your body. That's where the power comes from.
Makes sense. Great stuff.
I like my show muscles.
Yeah.
Those are good.
Yeah. All right. So hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to give us a big thumbs up. If you're listening to us on any of the podcast platforms, you enjoyed it, please give us a 5-star rating. If you are not planning to give us a 5-star rating, just don't give us a rating at all and don't listen again. I don't really care. If you have any questions, if you're watching on YouTube, again, comment down in the comment section below. I'm sure you'll chime in with any sort of answers you may have. If you're listening to it on your favorite podcast platform, go over to Facebook at the Two-Wheeled Rider page, ask your question there, or send us an email at twowheeledrider.com@gmail.com. That is the number 2, wheeledrider.com, all spelled out, and then the @gmail.com as you'd expect. I know it's a little confusing, a little sorry about that, but we'll get big enough one day. We don't have to do it that way. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, I am your host, Mario Orsini, joined by my co-host,
Brian Boyer.
We'll talk to you guys again soon.
Well, we didn't have to worry about the time.
Yeah.
It's so taxing going through all that. But it was good.
That was good.